What's good, everyone? Welcome in to episode number 5 of the Role Players Podcast, coming to you live from Phoenix. Thank you so much for joining us, whether you're listening to us on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify podcasts. We appreciate you. Have a really impactful interview today with someone that I was lucky enough to meet while I was looking for people to be on this podcast. She has an incredible story, one of the craziest stories I think I've ever heard as far as like career trajectory. And I think there's a lot of really great lessons to take away from what she's going to talk about. Really, the podcast is mostly just her talking about this story that involves her journey in sports. She talks a little bit about her background and a lot about what her journey has been like trying to get into the industry that she's always wanted to be in. So I'm not going to waste any more time. Please enjoy my interview with Meena Sayah of Sacramento Kings. Well, thank you for joining us, Meena. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I am wonderful. Just another sunny day in California. Hope everything's good over in Arizona.
It is. It's actually been the warmest day that we've had in a long time, so the weather is great. I do miss California, though. I don't know if I've really shared it on the show, but I am born and raised in California. 26 years of my life spent there, most of it in Sacramento, which kind of gives away where you're from. But I love Sacramento with a passion. So it's really great to be talking to you today.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's definitely a diverse city, and especially the team that I'm working with has had one of the biggest turnarounds in 16, almost 17 years. So it's definitely an exciting time for me to be here, especially born and raised, and, kind of glad I didn't venture out and I got to kind of be a part of history right now.
100%. Yeah, no, I love that so much. And we're going to get into that right now. So, Meena, why don't you tell us what your role is and who you work for, and then just a little bit about your day to day?
Yeah, definitely. My name is Meena Sayah. I am currently with the Sacramento Kings. I'm over in their business department, currently as an account executive, and mainly the role is kind of like revolving around the sales floor. But my role in particular, I think I came in with a different background. I had almost 10 years of working in healthcare. And it was a mix of both administration, like heavy on administration work. So anything office and like just support related is, something I could do with my eyes closed. And then of course, I mean, I was on the floors and I did all the other type of work going through the COVID era, unfortunately. And coming out of that and into this role, I think my administrative work carried over. And so you look at a lot of my other coworkers and they're kind of just straight selling, 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 selling. And I'm kind of in the middle to where my director does send me over like little small like voicemails and just little teeny tiny tasks that it's like you got to check up on, round up with people, assist people. I take in phone calls, and I kind of became like a secretary with some sales work is basically who I am here with them.
And then you've also gotten to get into a little bit of your part of your background in journalism and do a little bit of that work too, right? You had told me you worked a little bit with one of the rookies this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my career and my journey and my path in it is such a weird, unorthodox, like makes no sense but happened anyways situation. And I don't even know if there's anybody else out there who can share this story with me or share this path. But the initial goal for my career, straight coming out of high school, was to become a journalist. I literally thought I was getting ready for work, and every morning at 6 to 7 a.m., I would watch First Take. And for everyone who isn't familiar, First Take is one of my favorite shows that ESPN has ever established. And we had Stephen A. and we had Molly Kiram, and then of course the secondary host changed out every so many months and years. But those two were a staple. And I literally was like, I think I want to do what Molly, that was my goal. I was like, I think I'm next up. And, especially looking at Molly Kiram, she is of some sort of Middle Eastern background. I believe she's like Mediterranean. And I'm like, you know what? One of the girls is up there. Like, all right, I'm gonna be the next out of this to do it. And I went to the plan was to go to a 4 year. I ended up being like, I'm gonna save some money and go to a JC. I had no idea about the JC trap. I went to American River College here in Sacramento, and I was like, I'm going to do this for 2 years, do my general ed, save all this money, transfer to finish out the rest of my years, and I'm done. I got my journalism degree, and I will move on, find an internship, find a job after that, and I'm golden. The polar opposite happened,
What
and
happened? What was that experience like?
oh God, I go in and I was like, okay, well, I mean, in order to pay, like, I'm not a kid anymore. I'm not in high school. I have to work. I'm applying for jobs everywhere. Initially working at the mall, and I was like, this is not minimum wage was $8. I was like, this is not cutting it. And I ended up getting a job at Kaiser Permanente. And I didn't know at 18 years old going into that type of a corporate setting, they were basically like, we don't really care if you're in school. Um, this is a big girl job. You're going to show up here and figure everything else out outside of it. And not to, it's a great hospital, great foundation, but that's just as an adult and as a professional, you need to understand going into that serious of a role, you do need to be dedicated, no matter what job you have there. So I end up working full time there, and I'm unable to keep up with the junior college route. And I'm taking a class here, I'm taking a class there. I'm going to the counselors. The counselors can't really give me much direction. Some of the advisors over there, it's like it's kind of tough with JC advisors, but I end up graduating from there and transferring over like 6 years later. The longest 6 years of my life.
So you graduated with your associate's degree or bachelor's degree?
Associates from American
Okay.
River, and it was in journalism. Like I end up going over finally to Sacramento State, and I applied everywhere as well. I really wanted to like branch out for college, but I really had to come to terms with it's like, no, I'm deep in this career right now in healthcare that I had no plans of. And I'm like going through 35 departments in that facility. Like I'm going to different areas, like wherever they need me. I was really working 12 to 16 hours at one point as well.
While you're
And
going to school at the same time.
correct. Towards the end, I really got so like my heart was not in, like, I was like, I'm not supposed to really be here. I did my job with my whole entire heart. Whether I was working with patients or whether I was working in the office, it was people's health that we were working with and their well-being. And so I really took that to heart, and I did it to the absolute fullest, but I still wasn't happy. And I finally got to that breaking point to where I'm like, this is taking me way too long. I need to figure this out. I need to step into my career.
Yeah.
And, I was working night shifts from 10 o'clock at night to 7:30 in the morning. And after that, I basically went to school. And at Sacramento State, my first semester there, the advisor tells me, you're going to graduate in 3 years. And I anticipated one. And I was like, no, 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 no. I came in here with like all these units. There's no way I can do 3 years. I thought I was acting like I was in prison. Essentially, I was like, I can't do 3 years. And I was like, bet I'm gonna finish this out. I'm leaving spring. Like I came in fall 2020. I was like, I am leaving in the spring. She was like, there's no way. I unit petition, and they approved my unit petition, and I went above the 18 units. In my first semester there, I did 21 units. We
Wow.
Yeah, and that
That's
was one.
that's like a full course load plus a little bit more.
I think when I finished out by spring, I was a little bit around 30 classes or just a class or two above that when I finished out in the 2 semesters. Um, I just was so eager. Like I just couldn't take it anymore. I was like, I need to get to where I want to be. And quite frankly, like I deserve it. I'm a skilled person. I have this talent and I believe in myself and this is where I thrive and I'm happy.
Hmm.
I've seen it. And so what am I doing? Was I doing something wrong that like I took this long? And quite frankly, it was just the process. It was what it was. Like I learned a lot throughout the years. I learned how to be a professional. I learned how to handle situations. Like I really gained a lot of skills to be able to push myself forward in other roles. But yeah, that first semester I did the 21 units and then I get to winter break and it's like 2 or 3 weeks. And everyone typically takes it off. So the system at Sacramento State broke, and it should have capped me at 6 units when enrolling. And mind you, you don't get financial aid. You don't get which I never got in the first place. I had to pay for all of that, but you have to pay it out of pocket.
Yeah.
And I enrolled in 15 units for winter.
In that, what, 3 weeks?
The 3 weeks. So
Wow. What?
I didn't know. Like everyone was telling me, like, hey, like we're only taking 2 classes. And I'm just like, okay, that's cool. And I'm like over there strategizing. I use up all of my vacation time, which wasn't a lot.
Hmm.
Um, every employee by seniority is allotted so much time. And I did not have much. So I used up like all the 3 weeks of vacation that I had and strategically planned out how to execute. I was like, if I just don't go to sleep and if I just and if I just stay and I knock this out and I start from the very first day, blah blah blah. And I get to that and next thing you know I get an email and it was like, hi Miss Saya, we realized that you enrolled in 15 units. Like this is not doable. We've never had a student do this before. You have until tomorrow to pick 2 classes and drop the rest. I go into panic mode and I'm like, no, you're ruining my plan right now. Absolutely not. I'm not dropping my classes. Like I just lost it. Like I had a goal in mind and I wasn't gonna let anyone stop me. And I knew even if I was short by a class or two, I wasn't gonna graduate in the spring. And I quite frankly rioted. I emailed the um continuing education department. I think you pronounce it provost or provost.
Yeah, provost. So you emailed like the top people of the university so that you
Well,
could graduate on time, doing anything that you could to make sure that you walked in the spring.
they literally all got involved one way or another. And I was like calling the offices. I'm like, okay, cool. Who's your manager of your department? The chair of comms was there, like the just anybody, all the way to President Nelson
Hmm.
was
Right to
now
the top.
like everybody and anybody like who was at that school was basically involved and they all told me no. And I said, listen, your system broke. That's not my fault. And I'm capable of doing this. I worked Thanksgiving, Christmas, I worked double overtime. I gathered $5,000 and paid for all of it out of my pocket. I killed myself to pay for that. And I basically told him, I said, if I fail, you keep my money and I go on with my failures. There's no lose here on your situation. And so I don't understand you preventing me. All of them. They were irritated with the amount of emails, with the amount of people that I involved.
Hmm.
Uh, and then B, they're just like, we don't think this is healthy for you. And I was like, if I was 18 or even 21 at that time, I was well into my mid 20s. And I said, I'm a grown woman and I understand what I'm capable of. And you're interfering. Like, if you don't let me do this right now, that's what's going to take a toll on me. They said, we're sorry. Let us know what classes you want to keep. And so I was like, I stopped for a second and I could feel like tears coming to my eyes, and I'm not an emotional person, but I can just feel like I have everything in my hands. Why are you getting in my way right now? So then I was like, nope, man up, Meena. And I email back the provost and I'm like, I'll negotiate with you. I'll keep 12 classes. I already started the work on it. And I think they got pretty tired and they saw I wasn't giving up. And they're like, 12 it is. So I took, I'm so sorry, I said 12 classes, 12 units. So it was 4.
Units, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I did those 4 classes in, I believe it was 2 to 3 weeks, passed all of them, A's, B's, and came up out of that. Have another meeting with the advisor going into my spring quarter. I'm like, here we go, another 21 units. Did that in the fall. I'm golden, nothing much. She hits me with, you don't have a language requirement and you don't have this and you don't have that. And on top of that, like if you even like have the units, which was like 120 for your degree, you can't graduate because you didn't mark these off. And I'm like, you're kidding. They just threw another stone in there. And I'm like, okay, I got to figure this out. They approved me to take 24 units and nothing more. They said, that's the most we're going to let you do. I take the 24 units and I'm still short. I need 2 other classes. I go back to American River College and I end up taking 2 8-week courses, capping out at 28 units for spring.
At the same
And
time, you're taking classes at Sac State.
yeah, I had the 24 units and I planned it to where I would do 1 8-week course first, and then I will transition to the second 8-week course. So that way they're not both piled up. So that way I'm not doing 28 the whole time. I was doing like 25 at one point, and then I was actually at 28 for the remaining. And I had classes like upper level stats, I had data analytics, I had just, it was communications and research. And
It's not throwaway classes, like real classes.
yeah, it was math, and it was I already did all my journalism portions. Like these were in your degree, you have to cover your math and your research and
Yeah.
classes. And yeah, I graduated that final one with 28 units, had my transcripts delivered on time. Like it was in the nick of time. Like I don't even know, I took my last data analytics final and I literally like stopped at the computer and I realized like, oh my God, it's over. Like I got here. Like what did I just do? I didn't even realize it. I wouldn't even let myself understand like how much I had going on. I never told anybody this is what I have going on. Like people would ask me like, when are you graduating college? And I'd be like, I don't know. I have no idea. And I finally did it, and I think I just like bawled my eyes out after that final
Wow.
and was like, okay, on to on to the next. I actually went back to work that night. I finished my final like at like I think it was I started at 7 o'clock in the morning, finished the final like close to like 8:30, 9 o'clock, went back to sleep, woke up and went to night shift. And that was kind of a wrap for the educational for the educational journey.
That is probably the wildest story I've ever heard when it comes to getting a degree. And I'm amazed you did it. That's such a testament to the grit and the grind and, just pushing past everything and everyone that would get in your way. I bet that was a huge boost to your confidence and your skills that you had that would put you in this current sales role that you're having.
I didn't even know what I was coming to. It's like this story just doesn't even, we don't even know where we're going with this. So I ended up going back to night shift like regular. And I'm thinking, like, oh my God, this degree that took me, I don't know how many years is finally in my hands. Let's go. My career is taken off at this point. So I'm like on a mission to get myself out of, the healthcare role. And,
And the goal is still journalism at this point.
yeah, it
Yeah.
is. And I was just like, my heart has always been in sports. I know everything about every single sport that there is there. Am I the most technical, detailed statistic? Can I tell you where a player was born in the 1980s? No, but can I talk to you about UFC and the different, weight classes and the different, what orthodox is, what southpaw is, what the different, fighters are? can I talk to you about boxing, baseball, especially football is my favorite, basketball, all of that. I mean, I can talk until I'm blue in the face with it. And I said, I have to get into some sort of media journalism work um, in sports. So I started applying everywhere. I mean, the Warriors, the Suns. I tried to stay within California, but also tried to like just for the backup, just apply to some teams out the state. And I'm applying everywhere, not hearing anything. Couple months have passed by, and I'm just like, okay, something has to give here. Like, what do I have to do? I start feeling discouraged because I was like, you know what, Meena, maybe your head is up in the clouds. Like, you're a girl, you on your resume, it's hard. They're looking at a piece of paper and not you. They are looking at 10 years of medical history and like comparing you to other people who have internships and fresh out of college and have, sports backgrounds and clubs and all sorts of things on them. And I'm like, I'm going to get passed up. Like, unless I get in front of somebody, like a miracle happens, Sacramento Kings end up calling me and I'm
Mhm.
applying for whatever position they had here, like everything. Sacramento Kings end up calling me and I'm like, what is this role? Like, what is this? I thought it was just like some sort of administrative, some sort of something. And I'm like, I don't even care at this point. I just want to get my foot in sports. Like, I just want to be there. I do the call and I'm like so anxious and so eager. The director here fast forwards and I go to the third round of the interview and he brings me into the office. I'm looking around. I'm like, it's this gorgeous new like facility. It's like all this open, bright space. It's like night and day between where I'm at, literally nights inside of a hospital.
Yeah.
I'm in this beautiful, gorgeous new downtown area with like my dream field. And I'm like, if he offers me this job right now, I am taking it. He sits me down in his office after I kind of shadowed with some people, and everyone here was, until this day, they're still here, absolutely wonderful. They were younger. I was so used to working with the older demographic. It just was such a change. I sit down in his office and he goes, um, you're from Sacramento. And I said, yes. And he goes, a lot of my people here are not. And I'm like, okay, where is this going? And he's like, to be quite frank, your resume and everything, it doesn't match up with like what we have here, like for this role. And I'm like, listening. And he's like, but I spoke with a couple of people who know you. And I'm like, who knows me? I haven't even seen daylight in, in years. Like, who have you spoken to these days? And he goes, we magically went to the same high school. He was only so many classes ahead of me, like so many years. His wife actually was in high school with me, and we were both for a short period of time. Like, she played softball, and I was like on the JV team for a little bit. And so he goes, well, I looked on your resume that you went to the same high school as me. And it was within like a similar period. And he goes, I'm still friends with people who know you. And I asked at least 6, 7 different people about you. And they all said you were one of the most hardest working people, like one of the most genuine. Like, they said all this positive stuff about me. And I almost like, again, I'm not emotional, but like my eyes were like watering because I was like, strangers I haven't seen in years are speaking on me like this. And that just means like the world that people would describe me like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
I'm sorry.
yeah,
Go ahead. Keep going.
no, you're good. He he told me, he goes, 750 people applied for this role. And like, he was like, so just keep that in mind, 750. And I'm like, what did this man just talk to me about? So you just told me I'm a hard worker, you spoke to strangers, like they're saying I'm good, my resume, 750 people, okay. And he goes, how do you like it here? And I said, I love it, it's wonderful, it's beautiful, like I would be more than happy to be here. He was like, okay, cool, we'll talk soon. I leave the office and I'm like, I haven't been down here in so long, like haven't been able to do anything during the day. Let me treat myself. I'm going to go grab me some coffee, like grab me some like dessert or something. And I'm grabbing my coffee from this place, Estelle's down here, and he calls me and he's like, "Hey, you make it out the parking garage okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm actually leaving right now." And he's like, "You want the job?" Like, he was like, "We want to offer it to you." And I was like, "It's a wrap. I'm there. Thank you." I was like,
Nice.
I will be there. So how I got to the Kings, super unorthodox, based on my character and a whole lot of wishing, I think is safe to say.
Well, I mean, sure, you probably had lots of moments where you thought, but no, I see just in this story that you are hardworking more than I've heard most other people are, especially in sports where like you didn't have connections and you really just had to work hard and grind. But something you just said that I want to touch on, and there's a lot in there that we're going to unpack, but something that you said that I want to touch on is that you built relationships, whether or not you knew it or not, back in high school by just being a good person that had an outlook on life that was, I'm going to work my hardest to do what I need to do, whether it was building relationships with those people in high school or in school or group projects or whatever, when you were a child, that paid off, so many years later. And that's something we just talked about with our last guest, Jessica Stallworth of Adidas. And she was telling us that building those relationships impact future success because you didn't know this man, but his wife knew you and knew people that spoke about your character. And you didn't ask for any of that, but because of the way that you hold yourself, because of the way that you presented yourself in situations that were public facing, I think that a lot of young professionals can take that advice and say, watch out what you're putting on social media. Watch out how you're acting with your friends and with people that are friends with others that may have connections in the sports industry, because that is a lot of the time how you're going to get to the places that you want to go, is not so much about how much you know, and not always who you know, but just being like a really good person. Like it seems like that was one of like the most endearing qualities that really helped you get where you were. Is that kind of how you're feeling about it?
100%. It's always been, and that's like, if I can share any ounce of advice just in general to anybody, my number one thing, my grandpa was in the military, and he, retired from the military. He was actually in the Air Force, and his biggest thing was always having respect and carrying yourself well. Character was emphasized to me so incredibly, growing up. And my biggest, and this is going to sound a little bit nuts, you can tell me if it is, but we're not going to be here forever, and no one is going to look back at your cars, no one's going to look back at your house, no one's going to look back at anything that you had. When people look back, they're going to just remember your name, and when your name comes up, they're either going to think of how you did them wrong, or they're going to think of how you did them right.
No, that's right. I 100% agree with that. That is all that we have to take with us, is like the word legacy comes up.
Right.
It's not so much about what we've built physically on earth, homes, wealth, notoriety, in our career, fame, if that is a word that comes up a lot, is that people just want to be known and be famous. But a lot of people that are famous, like, we don't exactly know who they are as people. So definitely, like, who a person is, like their ethos and their, the way that they carry themselves and the way they treat the best people in the world to the way they treat, you know those who are looked down upon in society. Like, the way that you treat everyone is really the, all that you can really rest your hat on at the end of the day. And it sure sounds like you have an amazing background to be able to do that. You spoke about your grandpa. Was there anyone else in your life that you can kind of attribute the hardworking, treat everyone well attitude that you kind of seem like you bring to every situation now?
I think my situation was unique. I have a very tight knit family.
Mm.
Um, my mom worked a lot growing up as well. She's in the healthcare field. And back then it's like my dad was in the trucking industry and stuff. So like my parents worked a lot. And I was very fortunate. We had houses on the same street, and my grandparents lived right, just a few houses down. So the elementary school was also just within distance, middle school, everything was in distance. And I had four uncles living in that very house as well. Um, so my whole entire life was basically spent at my grandparents' house. My grandmother was and is a homemaker. Her one job was to basically take care of the house and take care of all the grandkids and stuff like that. Her main job at that time was just like I was there, right? My brother is quite a few years older than me, so he was already like a teenager, self-sufficient. I was just like a brand new kid coming up, and the balance between my grandma and my grandpa, I don't even know how I got it, but I'm just so happy I did. My grandmother is so soft, cannot hurt a fly. I don't think I've heard a curse word out of her ever. Like, she just is so sweet and like fashion savvy. She's all about like just being chill and being cool, being friends. Like, everything that is good is stemming out of this woman here. And, she really taught me that side of like listening to people. It's okay to be emotional. It's okay to like love people. It's okay to be loved. Like you grow up sometimes and you can be so stubborn, so hard. Like, there's just so many different characters that I've came across that like it's so hard for them to empathize or just radiate any of that energy. And it took me a while, especially to learn it, but I had it there with me. I was taught it, and that's something that I'm very, very grateful for just being loved by someone like that. My grandfather was absolutely amazing. He was very, very loving towards me, but in a different way. Again, he was, coming from a military background, and he was all about like making sure he taught me respect, making sure he taught me character, making sure that like when I'm going out into this world, I know what I'm doing. And most importantly, he just wanted me to have this confidence and keep my head up high. And to have that mix of like this soft, wonderful, happy go lucky, positive, loving character, and then you have this hard, stand your ground, keep your head up, you're skilled, you're smart, you're educated character. Like, you combine that right there, and you kind of like, they built me from like the ground up. Like, they really, I think about it all the time. I'm like, I am just so grateful that I'm able to come out here and just like, I'm not bitter, I'm not angry, and I've worked with people like that before. Like, I'm able to show up to work even when there's hard times and not take it out on anyone. I'm able to come here and be an honest, dedicated, hard worker. I've never lied on anything. I've never lied on people, and that's on my name. Like, I just am straightforward. I am who I am from the jump, and I'm just very confident and just happy in my abilities. So those two right there, I feel like I owe them everything, honestly. And my grandfather passed away in October of 2016. I had never encountered someone close to me, passing away. And the crazy part about it is when he passed away, it was a nightmare. It was possibly the worst day of my life. But at the same time, I used to tell myself, how would I ever come back from that? How can I move on in life? And it was because he taught me so much. It was because he gave me so much, because he literally did his role in my life so much as a male figure. I was okay. Like, I was good. Like, I was so grateful that he built me up and he was so present in my life and educated me and rounded me up that, when he left, like, I was like, that was, he basically told me that was the purpose, is for you to, if I'm not here, you're going to be fine. And so to have people like that in your life, I think is truly a blessing. And I feel like not everyone gets it. And so I just have to be just through the roof grateful for my grandparents.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that that's just amazing to hear your story and just straight from the heart about everything you've been through and the people that have impacted you along the way. I also, for a period of my like young childhood, was raised by my grandparents while my parents worked, and it was like an experience that really bonded us together. So when I lost my grandpa as well, and ironically, I think it was also around 2016. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe 2015. It's just crazy to even think about it. Um, it was hard because that's where you really learn how to be a good person, is by the people that really rear you up when you're young. And I attribute a lot of my best qualities to my grandparents and the way that they raised me and the way that they taught me how to be who I am. So thank you so much for sharing that. I love to get these personal stories from people like yourself that you know just get to go behind the scenes a little bit and really get to like the heart of like who people are. So I appreciate you sharing is all I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. No, and like I said, I'm like, I can't lie. And I also have this terrible thing of like, I can't hide. Like, I'm so honest to the point where I'm not even really like monitoring myself to see what, like, am I saying too much? Am I saying like, am I sharing a lot? And I'm like, no, this is me. This is who I am, whether it's perfect, whether it's not perfect. Certainly it's more on the not perfect side. This is my life, this is my story. And if I were to sit here and give you this like cookie cutter, wonderful, path to like how I came up, I don't think people would benefit from that. I don't think even if one person heard my story and resonated with it and was like, you know what, I'm may not be on the same path as her, but I'm also struggling. Like I'm also having to come up. I'm also having to work nights. I'm also in a field that I
Yeah.
don't, and I'm also trying to make it to this other field. Like there's benefits in imperfection, and I think it's very important for us as humans to share that. Like, be real, tell people who you are and what you go through, because that's something that somebody else can use to either not make the same mistake you did or improve themselves or get to where they need to be faster. And if someone ends up being more successful from your mistakes, well, then, honey, you did something right in this life. And
Look,
that's what I can ask for.
you're preaching right now. No,
Yeah.
the whole point of this podcast is to give those who are about to come up and be the next you and the next me a better way to do so. I want all the stories out there so that if someone's going through something very similar, that they can learn, pivot, do something different because it doesn't work this way. Like that's what I want. So, Meena, this has been unreal to hear your story. I really appreciate you giving us your time today. I know everyone who hears this story is going to appreciate it just the same. Are there any closing thoughts that you want to leave our audience with?
Man, I know this is going to sound cliche, but just don't give up, really. I
Mm.
mean, you feel it in your chest and you feel it in your heart that you are meant to be somewhere. If there is a dream that you have in mind, if there is a goal, don't ever let anyone get in your way. I mean, you put 110% of your energy into your life and who you are, it's gonna pay off. And just because you're getting older, just because you didn't do it the same time frame as somebody else, just because you're not following this path that, society or family or friends or, people around you have managed to do, that doesn't mean that you're behind or you're unsuccessful. Everything truly happens when it's supposed to. And everything that you go through, whether it's painful or whether, it's devastating or whatever it is, in each one of those events, you can learn something that's going to mold you up and it's going to prepare you to be even bigger and even better. At the end of all that, your success is going to be right there. So
Mm.
I just encourage everyone to just keep on going, learn, listen more than you talk, always listen more than you talk. There's not enough knowledge out there. You got to make sure you retain every ounce of whoever is around you. Take it all in. It's only making you better. And, you know, just be blessed and grateful for every day that we have here.
Blessed and grateful. I love that. Great final words. Mia, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your story and giving your words of wisdom. I know someone's going to be impacted by this, so we appreciate you so much.
Thank you for having me. I'm like, this was super, super fun. And I'm like, I know that I probably just gave an earful to people, but like you said, there's something in there. I'm sure it's going to hit somebody.
Oh, I think there's a lot. Trust me, there's a lot in there. So thank you so much. We enjoyed having you. We'll do it again soon. All right. That's all the time we have for today. What did I tell you? I mean, what an interview. What an incredible story she has to share. I think there's so much that can be taken away from that for anyone that's looking to get into sports because there is a harsh reality. And that's what I really want the show to be able to show is that it's not always a beautiful, easy rise to the top in the sports industry. So it's good for everyone to know that there are people out there that have these incredible stories of resilience, getting to the place they've always wanted to be, but looking back and seeing, wow, it took a lot for me to get here. So, Meena, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I hope that it resonated with someone. And if it did, please feel free to leave a comment and just kind of connect with us. We'd love to hear what you thought about the episode. Like, subscribe on all platforms that you're currently listening to so that I know that you're enjoying what you're listening to. And please check out the LinkedIn article following tomorrow. Last week was a little tough getting that article up, but I promise it will be on time this week. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a blessed day. Peace.